Welcome to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and educator Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue features a melting pot of topics ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. This is Season 4, Episode 23. It is December 19th, the third week in Advent. We have celebrated already in Advent hope, love, and this week's theme is joy. Anne, welcome to our podcast. Let's jump right into the flame. What is hot this week in your world?
Thanks, Haley. Yes, joy to the world. Gaudete, right?
Gaudete.
Sunday? Yeah. In the spring or Advent, it's Laetare. I was kind of thinking about that. And we are getting close. And I went to an event this week, and the speaker was a very popular Catholic priest. His name is Father Mike Schmidt, and he gave the audience a lot to think about, and especially a lot to think about in terms of joy. It was the inaugural fundraiser event for a brand new Catholic school named Nativity. And I think that's just a wonderful name of a school, the birth of our Lord, this what it's commemorating, the yes. Nativity. And so the imagery was just so beautiful with a star and, blue. And at this time of year, it was just striking that image and all that it means. And their mascot, Haley, is the camel. So the event was called Camelcade, and they had a real camel at the event.
No way.
And they chose the camel because of some of its virtues, which I learned about. So anyone who's interested in the virtues of a camel, we know they're hardworking, but and they're also stubborn. So it's a new school that emphasizes a classical education. So they're reading some of the classics like philosophy, literature. It's a high school. It's very small. But Father Mike he is known for Bible in a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know if it's something that you've done or seen, but I've seen him on social media. I have not done read the Bible in a year. But if anyone's interested in doing that, maybe for 2025, I would point to him. He will guide you through it.
That's a great idea. Well, first of all, I love the idea of Nativity being the name of a school because it's a birth. It's and that's what we're doing is kind of an awakening, a birth of this education. I know it's a high school. Of course, I work at a K through 8, so I'm thinking of we are awakening and just creating the foundation for our students. High schools do that as well. So I like the idea of the Nativity being a birth and a way that they're going to celebrate education. I will say when I first saw your notes and it said fundraiser for a new school Nativity, I thought somehow the nativities were the fundraiser where they were raising money selling them. So I thought that was interesting because, I love nativities. So I thought, how can I take part in this?
I think they had like some of their mascot wear, and I should have paid more attention if they had a nativity for sale. And it'd be interesting just to see how the theme plays out. But it is a new way of proceeding in San Francisco. This classical education, they have a lot. They offer Latin. All students are studying Latin. They have Mass weekly. They have adoration. It is, again, a more traditional approach. It's not for everyone. They don't
Correct.
claim that it is.
Correct.
And so it's just always, it's a different part of Catholic life. Mm-hmm. So it was exciting to be part of that. Father Mike talked a lot about preparing ourselves for Christmas. So we can talk about that in the spiritual stew as it relates to the gospel. But, what are we doing to prepare ourselves for Christmas? And he spoke on a lot of different topics. He's very dynamic. He's very high energy. I can see why he's very popular. Mm-hmm. So I would just like to, recognize his giftedness and his leadership in the church. He was asked about women and leadership in the church.
Interesting.
And he gave a very honest answer. He said he just talked about how we see leadership and that so many women are in leadership roles in the church, like high numbers of them, leading parishes, leading schools, leading hospitals. He said they have great influence. He did not say he did not mention power, and he talked about influence. So he said, he asked, he's like, am I skirting the issue? And, he kind of was like, it was a good dialogue with the woman that was interviewing him. And I would love to follow up with him, because I do think power and influence are different. I think influence is kind of behind the scenes, like
Okay.
pushing someone. Power is about titles and authority. Both are valuable. So it just gave me something to think about, which is what we try to bring to the flame.
Yeah, it is something I'm going to think about, and that might be part of my melting pot takeaway or even the stew that I'm going to chew about. What is the difference between power and influence? I think people use their power for influence, but what does it mean to have power? And if you can only have one or the other, what would you rather have? I think I know what my answer is, but I may have to do a little more digging in that, especially as he references it in terms of women in the church. I would love for women to have power in the church, but I am also very happy that they have influence in the church. So is that enough? Not at this time, but maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, no, I think you said that really well. One of the best classes I took at Notre Dame, Sheila Moss-Weigert, Power and Change in America. And it was just asking those questions. What is the difference between power and influence, like you said, and what would you rather have? And is it a personal preference, or why do we even make a distinction? So
interesting.
Lots to chew on.
Lots to chew on. So big topic in our house, which is I'm sure on your mind as well, and on the minds of many Americans, and mostly a lot of Notre Dame fans and Indiana fans and all of the other teams playing. The first ever college football playoff games take place this weekend. And of course, the very first one ever to be played will be at Notre Dame Stadium tomorrow night, or whenever our readers are listening to this, it'll be Friday night. December 20th, really a milestone just in the history of college football itself. I think ESPN's really happy to have it be at Notre Dame. I know many of us are happy to have it be at Notre Dame. It will be cold. I think most Notre Dame alums were hoping that we would be playing someone from a warmer state. We are not. We are playing. I can't even say we're playing in-state rival Indiana. I wouldn't even call it a rivalry, but we are playing Indiana, and so there is a level of excitement for this game in many different ways. I am looking forward to just coming together and celebrating the best part of what I'm really trying to focus on college football being, and that is getting together with people you care about to cheer, have a common goal, and cheer for something. I'm really trying not to focus on win or lose, the victories or, winning or losing. Of course, we know I want Notre Dame to win, but I don't want that to be the defining aspect of this visit. And so it's interesting, right before we started taping this, I got a picture from one of my teammates who is on campus already. He sent a picture of our coach, Tim's grave, and just said, I just let Tim know that, I'm here, there's a playoff team, all these different things. And I just said, I think what he would love the most is to know that we will all be there united in our love for him and love for one another. And that's going to be my focus going this weekend, is just coming together with these people that I love and care about to celebrate a place and a team that we love and care about. So hold me to that.
Okay.
But that's the goal. But that's certainly just been a lot of conversation this week, certainly in our family group chat. On the flip side of that, something else that I always try to do every Advent is read a book called Revelation of the Magi, the lost tale of the wise men's trip to Bethlehem. And it is a historical account of, really almost a scientific account of what, I should say, it's a historical and scientific account of the world at the time and what and who the Magi were. And it also gets into the science of what the North Star could have been at the time. It's a very dense read. It is not an easy read. It's not a long read. It's a short book. But I try to read it every year during Advent, leading up to Christmas. It's part of kind of my own journey. I get a little bit out of it a little bit more out of it every year.
Wow.
I understand it a little better every year. I think it's
Hmm.
going to probably take the rest of my life to fully get it. But I
Wow.
do commit myself to reading that book every Advent. So, Revelation of the Magi, it's pretty fascinating from just, again, a historical and scientific standpoint.
Yeah.
And I love that they bring the two together. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
So that's been on my mind. That and certainly the college football playoff game have been on my mind this week.
Yeah. Now, question, who did somebody give you this book? Is this
No, and I don't know how I came across it. I've had it for years. I read it when I originally purchased it,
okay?
and then I went away from it for a number of years because it is difficult. And there's a lot of footnotes, which I just find really confusing having to go back and forth. And it's not my reading style. So
Yeah.
about 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember if it was
Okay.
before or after COVID, I actually then purchased the audio version. We all know I'm an audiobook person, and it's so much easier for me to listen to. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I have been doing that, and I think that's where I'm getting
Smart.
more out of it for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know originally how I first heard about it, but it has been a
Huh.
part of my Advent tradition for the past several
Yeah.
years,
Well, your preparation for Christmas.
and
So
my
Father Mike would
preparation for
applaud
Christmas.
that. Yes.
Yes.
And I like that. I like traditions like that. Something that, right? Because you're noticing growth, personal growth, or how it speaks to you in a new way. And that's what's great about literature is has the power to do that.
And
Um,
and at this time of year, it keeps me grounded in what this time of year is, and
mhm.
it's just a reminder every day as I'm listening to it in the car. This is truly what Christmas is,
Mm,
and so for me that it helps.
that's great.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the college football playoff, I want to commend you for being weather agnostic. I've thought about this. I am not time zone agnostic. I am not weather agnostic. So I will be having a very different experience, but I'm super happy and excited for people that are going because I do think it's historic and it's going to be it's just exciting. It's something new. So that's great. And I'm also excited for myself that I'm going to be inside and warm.
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't.
just I don't have it in me, Haley. I don't. People are asking me if you're going to go, and I'm like, I can't. No. I mean,
So
yeah,
you would have to travel a little further than I would. I would not
yeah.
call myself weather agnostic at all. I'm going to be walking like the Stay Puft Marshmallow because I
Yeah,
will have so many layers on, but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay.
Hand warmers, feet
Yes,
warmers.
I do have
Yes,
hand warmers.
excellent.
That's coming in
Yeah.
the Advent calendar tomorrow for everyone.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So,
So we'll see.
yeah,
I look
yeah,
forward to our 24th episode of the year when we can regroup
yeah,
and discuss what that actually looked like, what the game was like, and how cold I really
yeah.
was.
Fair enough. Now, you are wearing a hat
Yes,
right now, and it's very cute. It's an elf for our listeners. It's a red and white stripe, like, yep. Oh, and it has two pom poms at
yeah,
the end. Is it knit? Is it a
it
knit
is.
hat?
It is.
Okay.
So it's like
So
a
super cheerful.
combination beanie elf hat.
Yeah. Okay. So I love it, and I think it's spirited and fun. And I have a question for you, for our listeners. I did blog about this recently. As we have mentioned many times, we love sacred stories. Notre Dame's
Hmm.
University of Notre Dame's Alumni Association has daily videos, testimonies for our daily Advent journey, and each speaker is different: alumni, coaches, students, faculty, etc. And last week there was a speaker, so he walked in and he was wearing a baseball hat, and I kept waiting, Haley, for him to take it off, and he didn't. And I will be honest, his message got lost on me because of the hat. Now, this is me, okay? But
Hmm.
it's been an issue at school. We've had a couple of teachers that were wearing hats on free dress days. They were told to take those off. We do not allow students to wear hats in the building. Teachers should not be wearing hats. I see hats everywhere all the time. Now, Emily Post does have a decorum, and it's a custom and a norm on when and where it's okay to wear hats, but I know this is the head coach of the 49ers wears them in the press conference all the time. Haley, it drives me nuts. The lid is too low. I cannot see. I feel like he's avoiding, the media, which he might be. But this happened last year when they were winning too. I don't have the patience anymore for the hat thing.
Interesting.
And I'm just curious, what your thought is. No, listeners, Haley just took off her elf hat. That hat feels very different. And you and I are not showing our video publicly.
Well, but I will say I have yesterday and today I did wear it all day at school. But I am sort of known around school for really getting into dress days. So I have primarily only worn red and green since December started here at school. I bought red and green reading glasses. But the hat's only come out this week. So just yesterday and today have I worn the hat. But I am with you. There is a time and a place for hats. I will be reading the Emily Post version to see if I agree with her or if I'm even more strict about it. I'm with you. I don't get it. There is hats serve a function. For a beanie, it is keeping your head warm. For a baseball hat, it's to keep the sun out of your eyes. At least that's really it.
Or the rain.
Or the rain, right? Or a rain hat, right? Or I do appreciate wearing a baseball hat when it's raining because I don't like water in my eyes. But a hat should be function; it should not be fashion.
Yep.
Amen.
So,
on the spiritual stew.
It's a good, anyone who's interested, Emily Post, and I like what you said. Like, you have a belief, and it's like I'm going to read this and see what I agree with, and maybe what challenges me, but. As a society, we know things have gotten a lot more lax in general in a lot of things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Agreed.
But I'm also like, there is no objective reason that a hat is necessary on screen or sharing a sacred story. So that's my beef. I have a beef. Yeah, well, and that's part of the stew. So
okay, great. Well, let's move on to our spiritual stew. So it's interesting when maybe I knew this, but when I was at Mass last Sunday, and again, now I'm watching every week. Our candles are lit when we first come in, and I've been going to 7:30 Mass on Sunday morning, so I'm the first one of the day. So the candles are lit before Mass starts, and not just because there's a Mass before me. But I did learn that pink is not a liturgical color. It is rose. The correct. Okay. You probably knew that. The correct color of course, this third week candle is rose. And joy was just a great. So last Sunday, December 15th, when I'm at Mass, it was also my youngest son's 21st birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Edward.
Thank you. And to know Edward, boy, talk about somebody who finds the joy in everything. And I always go back to...
What a great thing to say about someone.
It's so true if you know him. I mean, I remember when he was younger, I made him breakfast, and I'm not a cook, and I burnt the toast, and he goes, "Mom, it's okay. This is the best burnt toast I've ever had." And, that's just him. That just sums him up. And I knew it was his 21st birthday. I knew it was the third Sunday in Advent. I know the third Sunday is joy. But as I was sitting in Mass listening to them talk about joy, I thought, this is so perfect. How has his birthday never fallen on third Advent Sunday before? So that just made me smile. It was also really interesting for me, again, kind of then taking it more back to the spiritual side. The priest's entire homily focused on the second reading. And he noted that. He said, I'm going to talk about the second reading in my homily. And I guess, and I don't know if this is how it's supposed to be. I guess this is how I assumed that the gospel was always a reflection of, the homily was always a reflection of the gospel, maybe the readings collectively. But he was solely focused on the second reading, which I thought was really interesting. Now, for me, I loved it because his whole focus, it was, I think it was Paul's letter to the Philippians, but it was talking about the importance of giving thanks in your prayer. And there's a passage in that reading, the second reading, that talked about giving thanks and thanksgiving. And I love that because that is something I really do and strive to focus on in my prayer, is just that idea of giving thanks, of being thankful for everything. There's always something we can be thankful in. So I loved that he focused on that second reading because it was something I could connect to. But I thought that was kind of interesting that was really, that's clearly what jumped out to him as well when he was planning his homily. And I will say, and yes, now I'm probably not having a kind, thankful heart, but the priest the week before, and this priest does this often, and I want to say I'm not judging, but maybe I am, and so I'll have to deal with that. But he goes through his homily when he gives a homily, he goes through the gospel and he basically reads it again line by line and then talks about what every line means. And I want to say, don't read it the first time. Just read it to us. It's a very interesting approach to giving a homily. It's almost like a fill in the blank priest, write a sermon 101, just take the lines and go through and figure out what it all means. But that's all he tells us. Anyway, it's okay. Maybe it works for some people. Not my cup of tea. I'd much rather have them focus on Thanksgiving. So, and just interesting, the things that kind of pique our interest during Mass.
Yeah. You know what? It's so true. What works for you might not work for another person. A good friend, a trusted friend has said, I don't know why, and maybe they are, more priests don't kind of evaluate it. So when they are giving their homily, here's some suggestions. Teachers are all the time. We're visited by other teachers. We are evaluated by our students. And that's not without, it takes a little bit of thick skin to have it done, but it's also what leads to growth. And I would say there's one parish, St. Monica's in Santa Monica, California. The pastor has been there forever. He's beloved. And this parish I think it's dynamic. I think it's remarkable. And he did say at the end of the Mass, and if anyone would like to offer some comments or insights on my homily, I would welcome them. Please email me at this address. I've never heard that before. And I thought, wow, yeah, I know people who are, observation adverse. It is a tough day. And we got our teacher evaluations recently, and I was like, I'm not even going to look at them this year. And then I was like, you know what? We're going to rip the Band-Aid. They're not going to tell me anything that I don't already know, which is true. And the other thing is there's 3 kids who clearly have a terrible experience in my classroom, and they just strongly disagree on everything. And so it's like water off my back. It's true. It's like that happens every year. It's happened since I started teaching. It still happens. They make the evaluation personal, and they can't separate, maybe it's a low grade, maybe it's, they were disciplined. They cannot separate that from the evaluation, which is unfortunate. You would think as a senior in high school, you could do that, but we're human. We're going to do our best. What works for some, to your point, doesn't work for everybody.
Right. So, right. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It would be very interesting if that was embraced throughout our churches,
Yes.
So,
well, I find it interesting that your students would take your class and then go into it knowing that they weren't going to like it.
Oh, it's not the class, it's the teacher they don't like. Okay. That one's pretty clear. And also the rigor of the course.
So maybe they think a class called sports and spirituality. Fair enough. And the text it's challenging, which is okay. I'm okay with that, but I'm okay with all of it, and that's where you have to kind of get, I think, as anyone professionally or, in your ministry, whatever your work, your ministry, you have to get there to that place of like, okay, this may sting, but if I can use the good stuff, then I can grow. Right.
And that makes me think of my piece of the spiritual stew, which is, again, Father Mike Schmidt asking this question, how are we preparing ourselves for Christmas? Because he said, Christmas is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Like, think about it. You don't run a marathon without some sort of training. Mm-hmm. And he kept asking these great questions about big things and how do we prepare? And for some reason, I had never really thought of it that way.
I love that.
And I was struggling the week before because, with the gospel for the week of hope, it was all about John the Baptist and prepare the way. And And I just was kind of like, how does this resonate with this? But he says, make straight the paths, right? And prepare the way of the Lord. And it's like, yeah, making the path straight takes work and effort and precision. And it's the same idea. Like, if we're really going to be ready for Christmas, it takes our hearts some effort. So that's my takeaway, is really thinking about, how am I preparing for Christmas? I think there's a lot that needs to be weeded out. There's some cynicism, there's some ingratitude. I need to go to reconciliation. I try and do that during Advent. Maybe there's just some patience that I need to give to myself. It's a busy time of year, and just whatever that may be. But there is a lot to do to prepare.
Well, and I think that even plays into what I mentioned earlier with the priest who talked about giving thanks during our prayer life every day, or when we do pray, that idea of Thanksgiving. That is, for me, that just changes my approach to anything, right? If I go into something reminding myself of what I'm thankful for, I do think that helps bring us closer to who we want to be. But it's interesting. But the other thing I was thinking about was something I had put in for the melting pot, our takeaways, which is a question that I read this week that I thought was really interesting. And it asks us, how would you rate your joy this Advent season on a scale from 1 to 10? So just really looking at how joyful are we? If we're in this third week of Advent, it is the week of joy, but just again, thinking of that preparation. Advent is, of course, the time of preparation, preparing for Christmas. How joyful are we? And can you rank that? For me, I think most parents might not feel this way. I probably didn't when my kids were younger, but I gave myself a 9.5. I can't say it's been perfect, but I love this time of season. I love buying gifts for others. I love thinking of others. I love being reminded of traditions in the past, and and I love the anticipation of Christmas and the anticipation of seeing my children. So, but I also am reminded that this is not an easy time, and there probably are many people who, for many different reasons, are not feeling joyful this holiday season. And so I think that reminder for me, and I'm sure you do as well, we all have examples of that with friends and family members in our lives who maybe aren't feeling as joyful this holiday season. That's just a reminder for me to even in deeper ways recognize the joy that I feel. So I thought that was a really, what a great thing to keep in mind, not only what the priest shared in terms of being thankful every day, but also what's our joy rating here? This is a huge celebration. How are we feeling about that?
Yeah. Well, and I think, just hearing you say that, it helps me to think of people I know that just effortlessly exude joy. So, hearing your son talk about, the burnt toast, seeing you wearing
my elf hat.
Elf gear. I think of Father Pete, McCormick, who's at Notre Dame, when he speaks in the podcast, telling you that the man has so much joy.
Yes.
It's so becoming. It's very attractive. So I'm not a 9.5, but I really appreciate that, it is something that we can kind of see and bear witness to. So,
well, and one of my goals for the week, actually beyond the week, in the melting pot, our takeaways as we wrap up this third week of Advent podcast, is to keep that 9.5 rating up through Epiphany. Through Christmas, through the holidays, through, once we get to Epiphany, along the themes of the book I'm reading, the Revelations of the Magi, that is my goal. And to, again, remember to give thanks in prayer, but to also keep that joy during this truly joyous Advent season, but also to remember those who aren't feeling joy and to be mindful of that as well.
Amen. Love it. Okay. I'm going to be, like I said, preparing for Christmas. I have a week to go. So there's some paths, that need to be made straight. See how it goes. And
of course, after the CFP playoff game, I am I will be thankful to be there as part of my daily prayer. And
Yeah,
my goal is
with your
to stay
teammates.
joyful in victory and defeat. I will be more joyful in victory, but I'm going to find that joy in other ways, even if we are not victorious. So I know you will be watching. I will certainly stay in touch. Happy 4th Advent Sunday approaching. Merry Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to our listeners. And I look forward to connecting before the new year.
Likewise, joy to the world.